friends, good afternoon. Come and sit down with me and don't leave too soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Together we can make a difference if we try. Hello there, my lovely friends. Good afternoon. Come and sit down with me and don't leave too soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try.
Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Kind of switching it up here a little bit today. Bringing in a new friend of the channel to introduce everybody to another content creator from down under. Ping, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. I very much appreciate it.
So we met over at Web Sleuth.
That's right. And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we've talked a little bit here and there. So
yeah, and I think we're going to completely do something different today than what we originally talked about. We were going to talk about trial watching and social media and some other things, but some more pressing things have come up. I was watching your channel last night and saw your coverage of the floods, and I was gone almost all day yesterday, off of the news, out of the news, off of Twitter. So I didn't see what was going on until I got home, and then saw some more of the coverage on your channel. And I'm like, we got to talk about this.
I think there's a lot to talk about, a lot of different angles that we can have a look at.
Yeah, for sure. I usually start my streams talking about some type of sports because I'm a huge sports fan. The only thing I'll talk about is going to the baseball game yesterday. It's an old family tradition that goes back to when the Indianapolis Indians, that's the AAA affiliate, played in a brick stadium over off of 16th Avenue, just down from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So I can remember going to those games and watching fireworks back when I was a kid.
Is that a traditional thing for the 4th of July? Like they always have a ball game on?
Yeah. But obviously one of the teams has to be a visiting team. So they'll have their own fireworks night, whenever they get back or before they, leave on their road trip. But yeah, it's traditional to have a baseball game and fireworks. They packed the stadium last night for a AAA affiliate, and it's a nice new stadium. Newer stadium that they're in now. They sold out, 15,000 tickets they sold, packed the place.
That's a good turnout for a summer game.
Yeah, and semi-pro game, AAA, they get paid, but they don't get paid anywhere near the big bucks that the Major League Baseball players get paid, if any. But this is AAA is the level that's right below major. So if any of them got called up, they're going to get paid when they get called up.
Is that sort of where they send them when there's no more room on the roster? They send them down to AAA to play ball for a while.
Correct. Yes. and they can only do that so many times before it. Like if they call somebody up and send them down and call them up and send them down, they become a free agent and another team can then pick them up.
It's interesting. I follow the NFL, but I don't follow the baseball side. But I get the free agent stuff from the NFL, but it works a little bit differently. There's no minor league really for the NFL except for college, but they don't really have those sort of feeder teams that the baseball does.
Right. Yeah. You can't call somebody up from college and then send them back down. That would be funny.
Can't send them back to the NCAA for another 4 years. No.
Right. Right. But they are getting paid in the NCAA now. I mean, there are players that probably are not going to be starters in the NFL that are making darn good money through the NIL money, name, image, likeness.
Better than it used to be. I mean, they used to have to do it all under the table with the booster clubs and pretend like it wasn't happening, even though everyone knew it was. And this is a much better way. At least the kids can make some money.
Yeah. And the NCAA has made billions and billions of dollars off of their players. So, I mean, having that come back around, and it's not coming from the NCAA. The NCAA is actually still making their TV money. I mean, the Big Ten just has a ridiculous TV contract, and now they have their own network. So, yeah, it's nice to see the players getting some of their due, and because it's not under the table, more players can be involved in that. Like, I mean, there's some local kids that are advertising wing shops, wings restaurants. Come and eat at AJ's Wings. So they probably get free wings for the semester or something like that.
I like it. I think before, when you go to the NFL draft, only 8% of all players in all of college ever make it to the NFL in any capacity. Those other kids got to make a living too, and if they can make a bit of money in college, then even if they don't go pro in the end, it helps them out, pays off some of their school fees or whatever. I don't think it's such a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm a little bit conflicted about it because I always liked amateurism to be a part of college sports and not to be affected by it. Going all the way back to the Olympics when Olympics players didn't get to be paid. But then I remember in the 80s and the two back and forths with the USSR when we boycotted their Olympics and then they boycotted our Olympics. And we all argued that we're sending our college players to go play against them, especially basketball. And they have quote unquote pro players because they're a communist country. All of their teams are paid for and all of that. So kind of evens it out a little bit.
I hope the kids just learn to do the right thing with that money and not become broke at 25. And it happens far too often in sports where these young people get more money than you could dream of, and then they blow it on cars and mansions and stuff like that, and they end up with nothing for the rest of their life, and their bodies break down. So I hope now that pay bracket has got even younger, that maybe the schools will put some financial help to try and teach these kids what to do with large amounts of money.
Yeah, that can be a problem for sure. I mean, the temptations are just way beyond anything I can imagine because I can't imagine that amount of money. But dealing with those, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you got like that college girl. She's a gymnastics. I think her name is Liv, and she makes more money than anyone would ever dream of. And she's barely out of. I don't think she's finished college now, but she was from LSU, and she's making brand deals with like AAA companies, and so. Yeah,
I think there's a softball player too that's making an ungodly amount of money for playing women's college softball.
It's great.
And I think it's a pro athlete that donated to that NIL fund, if I remember right. I think maybe a basketball player.
Yeah, there's been a couple that push for it. So,
but speaking of the baseball game last night, after the baseball game, so the stadium is just west of downtown, on Washington Street. and probably eight blocks west of downtown. So we parked there near the stadium, and then we had to drive through downtown, back through downtown to get home. And it was packed. It was busy. I mean, you let 15,000 people out of a stadium all at once, and that's what, 5,000 or 6,000 cars leaving all at once. Plus, the city of Indianapolis was having their own fireworks show that started after the Indianapolis Indians fireworks show. So there were a bunch of people that were downtown just for that. It was packed. It took us probably a half an hour to 40 minutes to get to a spot on the north side of downtown that usually would take 15 minutes tops. So it was slow moving, lots of people, lots of pedestrians, lots of foot traffic, and lots of cops. There were a ton of police officers. There were like 2 IMPD patrol cruisers about every other block. Literally, I'm not even exaggerating. And there was a herd, I'm going to call it a herd of bicycle cops. There were 12 of them that were all parked in one corner. I don't know what they were waiting for, because anyway, yeah. So there was a large police presence downtown, and despite that, there was a shooting last night. So I want to take a quick look at that news article on that, and I want to get your comments on what the police chief has to say.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock on your Saturday morning. We start with tragic breaking news out of downtown Indy. IMPD telling us that 7 people were shot and 2 have died in a shooting just a few hours ago. Police Chief Chris Bailey went straight to the scene near Washington and Illinois, and the chief did not mince words in a press conference just before 4 this morning. Take a listen.
I don't know how many times I have to say it. We are not your children's keepers. You are. And parents and guardians have got to step up. A kid is dead tonight. And we just don't know the age of the young man down the street, still here, dead. He looks young.
That was Chief Chris Bailey just heard from. Now, we have had multiple crews downtown since about 2 o'clock this morning. Our Anna Chalker is live downtown near where that shooting happened. And she was at the Chief Bailey's emotional address to the press. And Anna, what do we know so far this morning?
Matthew, we know one of those victims that died this morning is a juvenile. And I will say all 7, there were 3 juveniles, 3 adults involved with this. We're still figuring out the second identity of the person who died. And this is still an active scene here behind me, nearly 5 hours after the shooting happened. So let me step out of the way so I can show you what is going on behind us. They have taken a large section of Illinois street that is blocked off for this investigation. The majority of
We literally drove down that street right there that you're looking at 2 hours before this happened. Less than 2 hours, about 2 hours before this happened.
this happening between Illinois and Washington. But as you can see, cops, investigators still out here this morning trying to pick up evidence, figure out what led up to this mass shooting. So I do want to show you the scene when our crew first got here earlier this morning to show you how large this scene was. It happened around 1:30 this morning. IMPD officers who were already downtown responding to a separate disturbance heard shots being fired off of Illinois and Washington. They were just a couple blocks down the road. When they got closer to this scene, they found 6 people who were shot. One of the victims died on scene. 5 people were rushed to the hospital. That's when police say one of the other victims, the juvenile, died. And then they say a 7th victim walked into the hospital later on throughout the morning. Like we said, in total, 3 juveniles shot, 3 adults still figuring out the identity of the one who died. Chief Chris Bailey says violence like this shouldn't have happened this weekend, especially when thousands were here in the city for the holiday.
It's unacceptable. The police department all night long went from place to place to place, trying to prevent these kind of things. And I gotta be honest, I'm tired of it. You should be tired of it. This is not our job to do this. It is unnecessary. You don't have to act like this.
Officers did take several people for questioning. We are working to figure out their involvement within the shooting. Several guns also recovered here at the scene. Back here live, still an active investigation over here downtown, mainly off of Washington in Illinois this morning. And I will tell you, as we were around here this morning, when we first got down here, thousands of people downtown, leaving downtown, either at a bar or at the fireworks. Like Bailey mentioned, they were talking about it's time for parents to step up with these kids who are here downtown. We'll have more sound from him coming up at 6:30. But once we have updates, we'll have those both on air and online.
Yeah, just a tragic way to start this 4th of July weekend. Our Anna Chalker reporting live for us.
Let me stop screen. There we go. So a couple of interesting things. First of all, he was angry, and a lot of people are angry. But he said a couple of interesting things to me that I want your feedback on. First of all, he said, "We are not your children's keeper." And then later on in the second clip, he said, "This is not our job to do this." I do like the fact that he mentioned that the officers that were downtown were going from place to place to place, and you can't be everywhere all at once.
I think he's right in one regard, saying that he's not really the keeper of the children, and parents do have to know what's going on with their kids. Like, why is your kid taking a firearm out to a 4th of July celebration? You have to be more involved in your children's lives, like, have a little bit of oversight of what's going on. And the second bit would be him saying, like, it's not their job. I don't know, you're a cop, you sort of do a little bit of everything, but I get why he's angry about it, because it's like they feel like they're chasing kids around all night when this is a pretty serious crime, but there's probably a lot bigger things that they have to deal with too, and they don't want to have to be prioritizing this type of thing when there's a whole bunch of, other serious matters that they've got to get to. So,
yeah. Too many of the youth are free-ranged, and I think it's a societal issue, especially in densely populated urban areas where the parents sometimes, especially in poverty-stricken areas or low-income areas, like if it's a single mom or a single-income household, they're working a lot, they're tired, they get home, son says, "I want to go out and hang out with my friends," and all of a sudden those groups and even gangs become a family to those guys. So that's where they're coming up with the guns. Like maybe he had it in his house and he took it with him, and maybe he didn't. But what are you going to do? Pat your kids down every time they leave? I mean, it's a tough issue. It's a complicated issue.
We have the same thing here. So in Australia, it's more about knife crime. So the kids out here, especially in Melbourne, are taking these giant knives, like they're like this big, and they're taking them out and stabbing other children or adults or whoever. And it's a similar issue whether you guys have it with the youth crime over there, except firearms are not as easy to get over here, so they've switched to the knives instead.
If you know me, I got to make a joke when one's available. That's not a knife. No, that's a knife.
That's right.
Crocodile Dundee. That was one of my favorite movies, but obviously probably very I don't know how to say it, generalizing stereotypes.
I think the Simpsons did a good job of even more stereotypes on top of that one. They did the knifey spoony in the Australian episode.
Yes. Is that the one where Bart racked up a whole bunch of phone charges to have them flush their toilets and see if they were spinning the other way?
Right. Yeah. And then they did a whole episode ripping on Australians. Yep.
Yeah. Oh gosh. All right. Now I think my next one is getting into the Texas floods. And one of the things about looking up news stories on these, especially in the beginning of disasters, is it's really hard to get all of the facts straight, and the facts evolve as time goes by and the situation becomes clearer. But it's good when you have a local city like San Antonio that's close enough to it to give you good reporting, because the further you get out away from the scene, the more mixed up the facts can be about it. And it's not necessarily a huge deal, but in a tragic situation like this, getting the facts not straight can be harmful to the people who are affected by it, or like the families of the people that are looking for any news on their loved ones that might be affected. So I've got some different clips from some different, I've got a KTLA, so that's a Los Angeles TV station, and they say one thing in there that I kind of question, but the facts are more or less straight. And then I've got like a 2-minute clip from the press conference today where the sheriff puts out facts and puts out numbers for places to call about loved ones, and also an organization to donate to if you want to donate to, and an organization that is local that will help them. Oh, let me hit next on that. Here we go. So yeah, this is the first one from KTLA. So this is a news station that's further away. It's obviously a huge news station being in LA. But I'm going to pause it on the part that I question, but then I'm going to play the sheriff's news report or news conference where he tells me I shouldn't question it.
So crazy. Panic is growing in Texas as at least 20 young girls from a summer camp along the Guadalupe River remain missing after catastrophic flash floods swept through the area. Desperate parents are flooding social media with pictures of their daughters and posting urgent pleas for information.
And the rescue efforts are ongoing at this hour, but they're being hampered by downed power lines, the flooded roads, of course, and bad cell phone service to boot. John Fanolio, live in the news center. He's got more on the search efforts as that death toll, John, continues to rise.
Yeah, Rick Court, we are seeing catastrophic flash flooding in the area of Kerrville, Texas, located in the central part of the state, just north of San Antonio. The National Weather Service says a month's worth of rain fell in just a few short hours as people slept early Friday morning. Texas officials say at least 24 people have died and dozens remain missing. Among the missing, young girls from a summer camp located along the Guadalupe River.
Tonight.
I don't know if you're muted.
Frantic search for missing and stranded.
Yeah.
People after torrential rains triggered deadly flash floods in central Texas. Authorities in Kerr County, north of San Antonio, say at least 24 people were killed, dozens still missing.
We're not going to be giving any names out at this time. We're still notifying next of kin.
Among the hardest hit areas, Camp Mystic, a Christian summer camp for girls located on the banks of the Guadalupe River. Early Friday, Texas officials said at least 20 young girls from the camp were missing. By nightfall, Kerr County Sheriff Larry Letha said the number of missing could be as many as 25. This is footage of the camp from several years ago. It houses some 700 campers. Authorities say many here had no warning as the heaviest rain came just before dawn.
Hold on, I'm muted. I muted myself right before I started talking about this part. So this is the part that I have a problem with, that the sheriff has a problem with me having a problem with it. That came without warning. So this storm came up from Mexico, and they knew. Some people knew. Who knows who knew and who didn't? but the sheriff says, don't be Monday morning quarterbacking who could have done better to prevent this kind of a tragedy. But on the other hand, Monday morning quarterbacking is how we got tornado warning sirens in the Midwest. You know, we have good warnings for tornadoes well in advance because of the devastation of tornadoes over time had us Monday morning quarterbacking. So could there have been better warnings? Should there be better warnings in the future? I think the answer to both is probably yes, but the first one is harder to answer.
This area didn't have flood warning on the EAS system. So you guys have the EAS system, which is your emergency alert system that goes over the sirens and your TV and the NOAA radio. That this place wasn't connected for the flood warning. I think that'd be a good start to at least get them hooked up to that national system for, you know, even if it happens once every 20 years, well, who cares? Maybe if that system was in place, it would have saved, even if it saved 5 people, who cares? That's enough people to make it matter.
And maybe it did, because there were reports from some people that said they got the alerts at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So
it's hours later. Yeah.
3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the night, they said they got the alerts. So maybe there were 5 people that were saved because of that. But maybe we can look at improving it. There is a sensor for rising rivers, and that's a good point. I'm going to show you the stream gauge data. It happened fast. It happened really fast. It would have had to have been, I mean, it rose like 25 feet in an hour or so.
Yeah, and under an hour.
Yeah. So it would have had to have been like a predictive model that said, okay, we have this storm dumping a bunch of rain. And if you know anything about hydrographs, as soon as those first drops of water hit the ground, it takes a certain amount of time to go downstream, find its way to a collective channel like the Guadalupe River, and then downstream to even bigger, bodies of water. So there's a hydrograph delay, but there was pretty much a wall of flood water 25 feet high that hit parts of these areas. But I have some other issues too about them holding camp and basically what amounts to a floodplain. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit too. I'm going to finish playing this. There's only like a couple of minutes left, and I think they have some good information.
According to the National Weather Service, slow-moving storms dump 5 to 10 inches of rain across the region before sunrise, causing the river to rise more than 26 feet in just 90 minutes. Desperate parents posting pictures of their children online, hoping for any information. Others anxiously waiting at evacuation centers for news that their child had been found. More than 200 people rescued so far. Texas Governor Greg Abbott issuing a disaster declaration for at least 15 counties as search and rescue operations continue.
This is a time when we as a state, we as a community need God more than ever. Little kids off at camp, joyfully excited about the upcoming day to celebrate the 4th of July. Campers alongside the river. So many people have been swept up into an extraordinary catastrophe. Whatever these communities need, the state of Texas is going to step up and provide it.
Just such a tragic story. Hundreds of rescuers continue to search for the missing tonight. The Texas National Guard has been activated and is on the ground. The U.S. Coast Guard and FEMA have also been deployed to the region. Texas officials say that the parents and families of those missing children have been notified. Officials also say that tonight the situation remains an active search and rescue operation, and as such, those numbers could change. In the News Center, I'm John Finolio. Court Rick, back to you.
All right, John, we'll get an update from
Let's see what the next one is.
Rescuers are desperately searching for survivors.
WSA, this is another pretty decent and pretty short one. I did just want to comment real quick. He said the U.S. Coast Guard and FEMA and other federal and state resources were dispatched to this. So kudos to those rescuers. Kudos to them for being prepared. Those task force know what they're doing, and those are the actual swimmers that will go out in floodwaters and rescue people, put their lives on the line. They literally do that, and they literally rescue people. They're the boots on the ground. Some of the problems come in when you get the side organizations, the volunteer organizations. I'm not going to name any names, that can put themselves in harm's way, and then they cause resources to be used for that. So it sounds like everybody seems to be staying back and letting the local and state and federal resources handle this so far. But it's going to go on for a while. Recovery from this is going to go on for a while. And we're going to see from the sheriff here in a minute what the latest update is on the numbers. Actually, you know what? Let's skip to the next one because I want to get into like the hydrology and hydrograph. Oh, okay, here we go. Here's his press conference. He starts like less than a minute in.
Manager Dalton Rice. And when we are done, because we are still in active search and recovery mode, we're going to keep this short. We'll allow 5 questions, and I am going to turn it over now to Sheriff Lathan. Thank you.
I'm just going to play his comments. I'm not going to play beyond that.
Probably a lot of y'all know Sheriff Larry Lathan, Kerr County. One thing I want to tell you, I appreciate y'all covering this. One thing I'm really big about is transparency. Really appreciate y'all getting the message out there. We will do our best. Like you said, we'll have 2 more briefings out there to get you information as we get it. What I want to start with, I want to make sure you understand these numbers I'm going to give you are 8:55 a.m. this morning. These are changing rapidly, okay? So every time next time we meet, I'll update you, but just bear with us, okay? They will be changing. They're already changing. I'm up here, and we'll try to do a really good job. I've got some notes here I'm going to read because I want to be pretty accurate on this. Then I'll talk a little bit before I turn it over to Chip Roy. We are now more than 24 hours into this tragic event, and Kerrville Police Department, Kerrville Fire Department, and Kerr County Sheriff's Office and other first responders from around the Texas are continuing to conduct rescue and recovery operations along the Guadalupe River corridor. So far, we've evacuated over 850 uninjured people, 8 injured people, and have recovered 27 deceased fatalities at this time. Of these 27, 18 are adults, 9 are children. Of that, 6 of the adults are unidentified and 1 of the children are unidentified at this time. That's of 8:55 this morning. We're unable to release any further adults, 9 are children, 8 injured people, and have recovered 27 deceased fatalities at this time. Of these 27, 18 are adults, 9 are children. Of that, 6 of the adults are unidentified and 1 of the children are unidentified at this time. That's of 8:55 this morning. We're unable to release any further information on deceased at this time as our thoughts and prayers go out to the loved ones. We are working hard to locate anyone who is still missing and to ensure they are safe. There are 2 ways that you can report the missing people. This is something I would really like y'all to spend some time getting out. One of the ways is via phone. We have a call center set up to accept information and share that information along our relief and incident commanders. That number is 830-285-1111. I'll repeat, 830-285-1111. It's 258. Correction, 258. Sorry about that. I'm going to repeat it one more time. 258. Number for the final time is 830-258-1111. Is everybody good? Okay. The second way is via email. Like the phone number, information received will be shared along our relief teams. That email is floodrecovery@co.kerr, Kerr.tx.us. Repeating one more time, floodrecovery@co.kerr.tx.us. There is a shelter for the general public who needs assistance at the First United Methodist Church, 321 Thompson Drive in Kerrville. 321 Thompson Drive, Kerrville. At present, we don't need material or volunteer donations at this time. We are coordinating with a strong state response currently. Cash donations can be made to the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Once again, donations can be made to the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Our first responders along have been working tirelessly and will continue to conduct search and rescue operations until all citizens are accounted for. Tragic incidents like this affect us all. This community is strong and will continue to pull together during this tragic time. We have been humbled by the outpouring of support. We are very appreciative of everyone that's stepped up to help us. One thing I want to tell you and assure y'all is that we will not stop till every single person is found. We've got all the resources we need. We're here for the long haul. As I said, numbers will be changing rapidly, but like I said, we will not stop till everybody. I can't tell you, I've been asked how long will this take? I can't tell you how long it's going to take. It's going to take a while. Appreciate y'all. Like I said, getting the word out. Like I said, after this we're going to take about 5 questions. At this time, I'm going to introduce you to United States Representative Chip Roy. He's going to say a few words.
I did it again. I'm going to have to stop hitting that mute button. If you hear background noises, you're just going to have to put up with it because I'm not muting again. Thank you, 857. I appreciate that. Thank you. So somebody asked, how many people reported missing? I think that's one of the 5 questions they ask at the end of this. And I think that number is also 27. And they're all, well, they know of the 27 girls from camp still missing. 27, they have recovered 18 adults and 9 children. And some of those have not been identified yet. But
I think they said that they didn't want to estimate how many were missing in the general sense. But
in the general population, right.
Yeah, but there was 27 of the girls from the Camp Mystic that they said had definitely, they think that's the number now anyway.
Right. Yeah, they exactly right. Didn't want to estimate how much of the general population might still be missing out there. Right. And I do know that people are still trying to get in touch with some family members. They have cell phone signal issues out there. So some of them may be hard to reach. And then if you get to a shelter and it's like a crowded shelter, sometimes you have trouble reaching family members at shelters, especially if they don't have a cell phone or they don't have a way, any other way to contact. I wrote those down that time. I wrote down the contact information for the county to call and give information on missing people. And I will put, if those aren't already in the comments down below or in the description of this down below, it will be after we're done here. So somebody asked me if I could map this. I think that's what we're going to do next.
One of the girls they showed on that video, her name is Renee. Unfortunately, I think I read it on my show last night that Renee was actually found deceased yesterday, unfortunately. So I know they keep showing a photo, but she actually died, so she's not missing anymore, unfortunately.
Wow. Yeah, I think they have to wait till they notify families before they can release that publicly, right? Especially with minors. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they must have already notified them. That's still terrible.
A bit of good news, though. One of the older girls who was a camp counselor, I think she was 17, she was located overnight and she's okay. So that's really good news. A nice glimmer of hope that there may still be survivors out there somewhere. So
yeah. Yep. And I saw a lady that was rescued out of a tree on one of the videos when I was researching this too. That was kind of cool. And it was just by another citizen. It wasn't by one of the emergency responders.
Those people that go out there in the helicopters and the inflatable boats and all that, and even the members of the public that take their own small bass boats out and stuff like that, they're the heroes that do this work.
Yeah, you gotta, like I said earlier, you gotta be careful with the bass boats though, because that current, your bass boat motor may not be enough to protect
overcome.
Yeah, I've actually been involved in a couple of hurricane responses in Florida and seen people try and go out in a bass boat or something similar to rescue somebody, and were never found again.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so as unless it's like a dire emergency situation or using all kinds of precautions, try and leave it to the professionals. But I mean, obviously, if you see somebody stranded in a tree and you can get to her and help her out, that was heroic. That was because he
Yeah.
was literally risking his life to do that.
There was a guy in Harvey who kept hearing a woman scream, and he took out his boat. I know Harvey was different. It wasn't fast flowing after it because it was rainfall, but I don't think it was all of it was flash flooding. Most of it was water accumulation. He actually went out and it was just him. He's like, "Where's all the National Guard?" And he went around. He apparently rescued like 57 people in one day. But I'm not saying you should do that in a flooded river. This was like a flooded neighborhood, which was, still water. It's a bit different, but yeah.
Yeah, floodwaters and still waters are definitely different animals. Definitely. Water is like one of the most powerful natural forces on Earth, and it's irresistible. If it gets a hold of you, it's irresistible. All Eyes, thank you for your comment. This one is stressing me. They got swept up by a current 2 years ago. Yeah, I had a friend that got swept out by an undertow in the Gulf, actually, and nearly drowned and just barely made it back by sheer will and determination. But when I had younger kids, we lived down in Atlanta for about a year, and there was a flash flood like this in Atlanta. It rained 10 inches in 45 minutes. And we lived along a creek, and that creek was normally about 3 inches deep. And that creek became 12 feet deep. And it was right behind our house, and it came all the way up to the back door of we lived in an apartment in a townhouse. But my now ex-wife with 2 young kids went out to the store before it started raining, and on the way back waded through flood waters to get to the apartment. And I'm like, why would you do that? Just stay on the other side until it goes away.
It's crazy how fast it can happen, though. It can be that
Yes.
simple. You go to the store and everything changes in that sort of short period of time.
Yeah, and then what to do, how to handle it. Do you risk wading through floodwaters to get back to your home? Or do you go to a safer high ground? I don't know. It's a tough decision in the moment.
I think sometimes it depends. Like if you've got a loved one in the house, I think a lot of people's first instinct is to try get to them first, even if it is maybe logically the wrong decision. The sort of, love for your family is sort of like, I have to get there. So.
Yeah, and that's what it was. All right. Ask and you shall receive. Can we map this to see it? So we're going to go to Kerrville first. That's northwest of San Antonio. And it's in between the Guadalupe River and I-10. And then over here, following the Guadalupe River this way. So you remember that video you showed last night of those 2 little boys, and the one of them was like a really good storyteller and was, like you're like, he could be a reporter someday. They were wearing a t-shirt that said this camp on it. So they were further downstream, and they were right there near the confluence of the lower Guadalupe and the upper Guadalupe. So this up here is the upper Guadalupe, and this is the lower or south fork of the Guadalupe River, and they converge right here in between these 2 highways, just upstream from Kerrville.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he had that T-shirt on from the camp. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's where they were camping. So Google Maps placed the pin up here, but I'm pretty sure this is it down here.
Yeah,
So
that looks like a camp.
Yeah. It's got the tennis courts. It's got cabins.
You know, they're
Yeah.
beautiful camps. I looked at the one the girls were at, the Mystic Camp too. They're beautiful properties with absolutely stunning like facilities for they're not like the camps I went to when I was a little kid. They didn't have all this kind of infrastructure and like sporting things like tennis and basketball and yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, but look how low that ground is that they're on. They're on the bottom of the foothills. They're definitely in a floodplain. Just like from a common sense standpoint, all of those cabins are in a floodplain.
Oh yeah, even the other ones, the ones where the girls were at the Mystic Camp, it's right on the bend of the river. So if that river swells, it's going to go over exactly where their campsite is because it's right on that bend, which is the only bit of land available if that does become a flood issue.
Right. So this is Camp Misty Way is the drive entrance. I lost the title to it there, but that looks like it right there. They're also on the bottom of the floodplain, but there's a creek that goes right in between them.
Yeah, they've got sort of a weird split property. There's this bit up here, and then there's another bit up the top too.
Hold on. There we go. It's easier to get around like that. So where would the other one be?
Right there. I think it's right where your mouse is. If you zoom in on that green bit, there's like another little bit up here too.
On the other side of the creek? Oh, okay.
No, right there. It's almost like they've
Gotcha.
got one here and then one further down.
Right. There's the basketball courts. There's a little performance thing right there, right on the edge of the creek.
You know, I'd like to know what the flood records actually are for like 1 in 100 year, 1 in a 50 year, 1 in a 20 year for this area.
I've actually got that for you.
Oh, good. we can.
And there's an aerial photograph underlay that you can see where the buildings are in relation to the floodplain. I do know somebody that used to work at some of these camps and said that as long as they've known the area and are familiar with it, this has only happened one time in the last 30 years. So would you call that a 30-year flood? No, this was not a 30-year flood.
No, this is like a 1 in 50 or a 1 in 100.
Right. So there's a River Inn Resort and Conference Center is right along the banks of the creek too. Just on the other side or upstream from Camp Mystery. I want to point that out because you can see on the flood map where that conference center is. You can see why they call it hill country. I mean, there's just hills everywhere.
That terrain is like that's why when you get that rain, all those valleys and peaks act like funnels, and it just funnels it into the nearest low-lying land. So,
yep. Yeah. So in Indiana, I talked about earlier, a drop of rain will hit the ground and it takes so long to get to the channel. That is based a lot on the slope of the land, right? The steeper the slope, the faster it's going to run down there. There are a lot of steep slopes here. In Indiana, it's a lot of flat farm ground. So it takes a little bit longer for the rainwater surface runoff to get downstream. Wow. All right. So yes, let's go look at the flood map now. That's a good suggestion. FEMA Flood Map Service Center. Here we go. So the Flood Map Service Center, let's talk about that for a second. Not all, a lot of these channels were, I'm going to zoom out so we can point out where the camp is. There was flood mapping done extensively, I think in the late 80s, early 90s. And then in the late aughts, like 2009, 10, 11, 12, they redid all the flood maps. So they actually hired civil engineers to do flood studies where they would take cross sections of the major channels and they would do hydrologic modeling to simulate a 100-year storm, a 50-year storm, a 2-year storm, a 1-year storm. And the base flood elevation is the 100-year storm, but they also did map some annual 2% chance, so that'd be a 50-year storm. So right here is where the camp is, where this creek comes in here. Remember, we were just looking at that.
Yep.
So you can see where the drive comes in, where the courts are right here. So this is Camp Mystic. There's, as we come around the bottom of the hill and around the hill, this is all flood zone A. So that's 100-year flood. Zone A is if you look down at it, so they didn't do actual cross sections of this and do an actual study on this little creek that comes around here. So they only call it flood zone A, which means it's 100-year floodplain, more or less, based on topography. But this is the main channel of the lower Guadalupe right here. And that red hatched area is a floodway that has been mapped. And that's where in a 100-year flood, the main water flow will go.
It's massive. You see it, and it almost fully inundates the entire area. Yeah, especially when you're showing the girls area, you can just see it almost goes over that entire sort of edge, and that just shows you how much water can get onto that low-lying ground during a flooding event.
Yeah. And one of the reasons they do this flooding or this flood analysis is associated with the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP. And if you're found to be in a low-lying area in the 100-year flood, you either can't build, or if you already built your building before they did their study and they find it in a 100-year floodplain, you cannot buy flood insurance.
Yeah, I know Florida had that issue in many counties in Florida, and they were starting to get their credit ratings degraded because of the flood risk over the last, I think, 10 to 15 years had proven, hurricane and stuff like that. And the insurance companies offered the council or local government a deal that if they put in preventative measures in the local communities, that they would lower the rates for the community members. But it would take massive investment by the local government. It was like hundreds of millions of dollars. And the local government did it to try and help their citizens keep their insurance, because the rates were going crazy. Like people were getting like 400% increases after a hurricane event. So probably something similar in these category A as well.
Right. It takes cooperation from smaller communities all the way up to the federal level to be able to address these flooding issues, which have been going on obviously for centuries, in the US. And the more development there is, the more impervious surface you have, like rooftops and asphalt parking lots and driveways and roadways, the faster the runoff goes and the worse your flooding problems get. So the more development we have, you have to mitigate that somehow. So a lot of times you can do that with building smaller ponds or building bigger lakes and to stop that before it gets downstream to the channels, to the rivers, to the creeks. So this is that resort that I was looking at over there. Look at that. That thing is well into the 100-year floodplain. Like it goes way past that building. So people wonder how that building is there because it got grandfathered in. But I'm going to guess that it may not still be there, or if it is, it probably has. Because if it got grandfathered in, that means it was probably built in the 60s or 70s, maybe the early 80s. And that means it's an older structure and would not withstand flooding very well.
Yeah, it may not be there. We'll have to wait because they'll do an aerial survey in the next week or two, and then we'll probably get more data from that.
Yeah, so that's the girls. I mean, those courts are like right in the middle of the floodplain. And let's see, what is this over here? That looks like it's part of the camp. Like maybe the main office, maybe.
Yeah, I think they got it's a weird way they've done it. They've got that top section, the bottom section, and then if you go east a little bit, they've got a bunch of properties as well. I don't know if they own the whole lot or it's owned by the owners that own the camp or something like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go up to the main fork of the Guadalupe River. It's going to take us a second to get there.
You know, they're very lucky. At a place lower down on the Guadalupe River, they were calling for 37 feet overnight when it was going to crest. But luckily it came in 7 feet lower than they were expecting, which actually saved a bunch of homes that were nearby. So if it hit the forecast, they would have been underwater. But that 7 feet of floodwater that didn't eventuate saved I think it was like 100 homes in the area last night. So very
Wow.
lucky, very lucky.
All right. Where did that other camp go? I got to look it up real quick. Okay. So it's just downstream. Oh, okay. It's on the left side of these that we're looking at right here. There they are. So that's the one from those two boys we saw last night that you showed last night. So they have some cabins that are a little bit better protected. So remember, the one little boy talked about how the water was coming up in the cabin. So you
Right.
can see right here the floodway, the red hatched area doesn't really encompass a whole lot of the cabins. So this area that's outside of the floodway is fringe flooding. So it's what you were talking about before. It's not going to be fast moving. It's going to be slow moving and gradually rising over time. So that probably saved their lives, just being at a little higher level and having the floodway being further away from their buildings, from their
That's
sheds.
sort of what he described in that video, is that they woke up in the middle of the night and their camp counselor, who was sleeping in their sort of accommodation, went like, what the hell, there's water in the cabin. And then they said it rose fairly fast, but not instantly. And I think they described one boy actually had to swim out a window to get out in the end. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's usually what happens in Florida hurricanes too, is they're not in the main, it's either wind damage or it's gradually rising floodwaters, and they see it coming up a little bit and they're like, oh, we've been through a hurricane before, we're going to stay here and ride it out. And then all of a sudden the floodwaters are 4 feet deep on the first floor and they're like, oh, well, let's move up to the second floor. And then let's move up to the attic. And then all of a sudden you have to call for a helicopter to go rescue them off the attic.
Well, they get trapped. They get
Yes.
trapped in the highest level. They can't get out and they can't go down. And many people drown in this way because they can't find an exit, and you can't just get through a metal roof. And it's surprising how many people actually drown in the highest level of their home in a flood issue.
Right. How would you get out of that roof if you don't have an exit from up there?
No, it's hard.
Most attic spaces have a vent of some kind, but I don't think I'd be able to squeeze through a vent. But maybe I would. Maybe I'd be motivated enough to squeeze through that vent.
There was a guy last night I was reading about in Kerr County. He was with him and his wife and children and his mother, and the floodwaters came into their cabin, and he couldn't get out. He punched a window to get out, to make an opening to get out, and while doing that, he actually severed his arm and severed
Ooh.
the artery in his arm, and he died to save his family.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's brutal. And apparently he survived for a few hours, and he was telling his wife, I don't think I'm going to make it. And then he passed away from blood loss.
Wow. So one more time, these are the cabins. Right.
They're really in a bad spot. It's not you got that one river, and then you got that other secondary water source as well.
Yeah, the creek right here, this creek bank comes over
Yeah.
here, and it was steep on this side, but it's not steep on this side till you get a little further uphill. Yeah, that's just so horrible. But they said, I think they said the camp could hold 700. I think that KTLA report said you could host 700 campers. So it looks like these over here on this side of the creek aren't as in much danger, but these in front of this would have been for sure.
Yeah, they definitely said they had park wardens come in yesterday, and they made it to the site, and they said half of the cabins were dry, and then the other ones were underwater. So there's definitely a split there.
Yeah. Wow. Anything else you want to see on this?
I'm all right. I'm good.
All right. I want to look downstream of the combined river real quick just to see what that floodplain looks like. So you can tell when it spreads out that those are flatter ground. That's flatter ground on one side or the other or both sides. And then when it gets really close together, those are tight contours. Those are steep banks on both sides. So I wonder if we can see the lake. There's a little lake right there, but that doesn't really help the floodplain elevation downstream. All right, let's go look at the stream gauges.
Yeah, they're very interesting. You'll see how fast the water just came in.
Water resources. So this is from the USGS. Something U.S. Geological Survey. So down here is where you've got the Edmondson Creek, and then you've got Cypress Creek, and Cypress Creek is the one where the girls' cabins are. We don't have any stream gauges for that.
Which is why you probably didn't get a warning come out.
Could be. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. So here we have the upper fork of the Guadalupe River, and we do have one stream gauge upstream of the confluence between the upper and the lower. And then we have another one downstream of that. So access data. Does that open up? Please tell me that opens up. Here we go. I'm using a different browser now. Did that not show? It didn't show.
Yeah.
All right. I've got to separate them out then. I've got to separate my tabs. I'm going to have to do it for every one. Dang it.
Yeah, it's better when it just auto switches to whatever you tap.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go back to Chrome. All right, here we go. Daily data. So it's going to open up a new tab again. I should have waited until I opened up the second tab. We have, it goes back all the way to 1967 for cubic feet per second. And then we have gauge height data that goes back to 1999 and goes forward through July the 4th. So we should see that sudden shift, right? That sudden influx. Oh, we didn't open up a new tab. Nice. Okay. So we're going to change our begin date to 2025-07-01. So this is the little stream, or the upper fork of the Guadalupe River. So here we have an average cubic feet per second flow that's around maybe 20. This is a logarithmic graph. I have such a hard time with these. I don't know how to interpret that. But the last few days, it's been lower than normal, around 10 to 15, maybe 20 cubic feet per second. And then all of a sudden, bam, on July 4th, and it's the second July 4th data point. So it's the evening stream gauge data. We go up to 30,000 cubic feet per second from 10. That's just insane. Or 15 to 15, not 15,000, 15 cubic feet per second to 30,000 cubic feet per second in that river in one reading from July 3rd to July 4th. There is no in-between data point. So 30,000 cubic feet. What does that mean? A cubic foot. So a cubic foot is a cube that's a foot by a foot by a foot, right? All 6 sides of it are a foot. So when I thought about that logically, I'm like, that seems like about the size of 2 gallons of milk. So it's probably like, 16 pounds. No, a cubic foot is 63 gallons.
And then imagine those by, infinite on that scale. And you got to think of that being surrounding you.
63,000 or 63 gallons. Is that what I said? Yeah, cubic foot is 63 gallons, and a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds. So each cubic foot of water weighs 500 pounds. So take 500 pounds times 30,000 is 15 million pounds. 7.5 tons of water per second. That's cubic feet per second. So that's 15 million pounds of water flowing through that channel per second.
Yep. You have no control. None. If you're in that water, you're up to the mercy of wherever it's going to take you, wherever it's going to deposit you somewhere. That's what's going to happen. You can't dictate anything while you're in there.
No control. It's an irresistible force. Stream gauge height says it goes from 1.5 feet to 7 feet. That doesn't comport with the numbers that they've told us. I'm not sure that stream gauge reading is accurate.
I think the one on the NOAA site is more accurate for the height.
Okay.
I can send it to you if you want.
Sure.
Hold on.
So I'm gonna take a look at the one that's upstream or that's downstream of the confluence. There's one that's downstream. Okay, we have daily statistics for cubic feet per second and gauge height. We have that again. Site selection.
All right, I emailed it to you. So
okay.
It's just got a bit better of a graph than this one. It's more visual representation.
Sure. All right, we'll take a break for just a second while I open up my email. Walk and talk.
It's the hardest thing when you're doing a live show is to do something and also make your brain talk about things at the same time.
Right. Yeah, that 15 million pounds of water per second. 7.5 tons. No, not 7.5. Divide by 2,000, not 2 million. 7,500 tons of water per second. All right, so there's Guadalupe River at FM 74. Guadalupe River at Comfort. There's Kerrville. All right, we can go upstream. Let me share this real quick. Got to pop it out and share it real quick so we can map around together. All right, our map. There we go, NOAA. So there's Kerrville. There's the one that's immediately upstream of Kerrville, and then the one we were just looking at that's downstream of the confluence, or that we wanted to look at. There we go. Full gauge page. There's a full gauge page, but this shows us what the height is.
Yeah, and you see how fast it came in. It's like flat level base reading, and it's just like 29 feet or whatever it is.
Wow. 29.45. The average is about 7. So yeah, they were saying 25, 26, 27 feet, something like that. Yeah, it's observed 7.5 feet to 29.5. So 22 feet in minutes.
It's fast. There's another one further down the stream that copped 50 feet. So double this.
Bear Creek, maybe? Let's check it
I
out.
think it's a little further down, but it's that one's 20.
23. So that one's 2.3 to 23.9. So 21.5 feet in minutes. $23.4, $21.4.
I think it might have been the comfort one that I sent you.
There we go. 34.7.
They might have revised it. It was up at 50 earlier.
Wow. So 3 to 34. That's 31 feet.
Yep.
And you notice this little blip in the stream levels there where it goes back up briefly after it's been coming down for a bit. That's that hydrograph staggering that I was talking about, where some of the areas take a little longer to get to that channel and contribute their runoff to that channel. So that's due to secondary contributions from surface runoff.
It'll be interesting to see whether we get another push, because right now there are stationary storms affecting that area again right now, and it'll be interesting to see whether we get another. Hopefully not. Hopefully we don't get a giant. There's one 49 feet. Hopefully we don't get another push of 50 feet or 25 feet of water.
Yeah, there's the one I think you were thinking about. 49.7 from 4 feet. So 45 feet.
Yeah, that's insane.
Oh my gosh. Near spring. So yeah, this is as we're moving eastward. So keep in mind that this storm stalled out over the area for hours and hours and hours and hours, and is still actually stalled over it. But the further you go east, the more it's stalled out. Let's see what Spring Branch has to say.
This is the one they revised. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be 37 feet, ended up being just under 30.
Yeah, there we go. 30. There's the lake that you were talking about.
Yeah, this is where the Guadalupe drains into, and they were saying that this lake was able to hold all of the runoff, where these catchments that you're about to click, they're not rising, they won't rise super fast because this area can take the water.
Right, when that says 883.08, that is an absolute elevation above sea level, I think. So observed 877.9 to 883. Yeah, the whole lake only rose 4 feet after all of those millions of cubic feet of water came into it. It's probably still rising though. I mean, but
most likely.
You know that spillway is more than 4 feet above the normal water level. Actually, I think in the press conference he said it's 13 feet low. It has been 13 feet low for a while. So yeah, the one downstream of the dam spillway rose 1.4 feet.
Yeah, you're not seeing those giant increases that you were before the lake.
All right, I think I have one more thing to show. Let's remove that. Let's see if I can find it on here. National Water Prediction Service. No, we were just looking at that. Here we go. Here is the current radar. So those Kerrville. and there are areas east. That is a huge storm. That is one big storm. Let's see how far back we can go. We can go back a couple of hours. That's it. Yeah, it's just sitting there and raining and raining and raining and kind of spinning backwards.
Yeah, you can see where that low pressure system is. It's around where that is at Killeen. It's just it's a little further south now, but you can see it wherever that center of that rotating is. That's where your low pressure system is located.
Right, almost like the eye of a hurricane.
Very similarly, just not as defined as what you'd have in a hurricane.
Right. Okay. So that's what I've got on the Texas floods. Do you have anything to add to that?
Just that I hope they find these girls. I think that's very distressing to have so many, young children somewhere out there. That's a disturbing thought. These young kids on summer break. I heard some of their parents are even overseas at the moment, having their holiday while their kids were in summer camp, and they're having to fly back from Europe to have to get back and deal with this and try find their kids. So it must be a very distressing situation for all the parents and the children as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so I heard, I don't know, I don't have personal knowledge of how much it costs to go to those camps, but I heard that it was kind of pricey for somebody like me to go to, even now, let alone when I was a kid and I have 5 brothers and sisters. But that would make sense that parents go on vacation to Europe, but other people, say things like, well, I wouldn't ever leave the country if my kid was at summer camp type of thing. And my son's mom was very protective, and I know for a fact she wouldn't have ever done that. Maybe if I'd left her there, I could have gone to Europe.
You never know. Maybe they have grandparents who live in Texas that live nearby.
True.
In case something
Yeah.
went wrong. Or,
True.
But I know one guy who, I think I said on my show last night, his 2 girls were found, and he was trying to fly back from France, like overnight, and he was asking online for tickets to get back to the US, to get to his kids.
Yeah, that has to be horrible and terrifying, and maybe regretful on his behalf. But I'm not going to speak for him. I just know it's got to be terrible to get that news when you're so far away.
Definitely, I think that's like not the phone call you ever want, no matter where you are, but being like thousands of miles away, knowing that there's at least a 15-hour flight difference to get from here to here, and that's if there's no delays, no problems, ticket issues, whatever. It must be
Customs.
it must be a helpless feeling for those parents.
Very helpless. So somebody's saying the San Gabriel River is flooding now. Come on.
Wouldn't surprise me.
All right, I clicked on your link and then it just went bloop and disappeared. Okay, because I have to separate it out. Move that tab. There we go. That time it worked. I don't know where the San Gabriel River is. I wonder if it's east of the Guadalupe. There's Blanco River. Let's take a look at some Blanco River flood gauges. Let me share that real quick. That one's not doing too bad.
Looks like it's northeast of San Antonio, or slightly northeast of Austin, if you want to look at the San Gabriel.
All right, there's San Antonio. I was kind of up in that direction. There's San Marcos. I know they've been getting rain for a long time. Onion Creek, a little bit of flooding there. Colorado River, a little bit of flooding there.
I think that river runs west to east, east to west too. So it's not a north-south.
Right, there's Houston, there's San Antonio, Peach Creek, Colorado River, Big Sandy Creek, Brushy Creek. There we go, San Gabriel River.
There we go.
Okay, they also have a little bit of a dam and a smaller lake, Granger Lake. Let's see, downstream of the dam, no flooding. San Gabriel at Georgetown.
They do have a flash flood or flood warning box over it too.
Oh, boom. 30 feet from 2. And this is now. This is the prediction for 2 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 40 minutes from now. They're predicting that it's forecasting to be at 30 feet in 40 minutes from now. Somebody's paying attention to the news.
It looks like it hasn't crested either. If it had crested, you'd already see that down scale on the other side, and you're not seeing that. It's right at the top point. So that may or may not be the highest. It may get lower, but hasn't got there yet.
There's the one. There's another dam, San Gabriel River at Lake Georgetown. So upstream of that, it has peaked.
Yeah, you see it. It's already moved past.
So it looks like this part of in Georgetown goes south, kind of like the Guadalupe River did from Kerrville. So that's why it's peaking, because it's not actually this river gauge right here is not affected by the dam. They're separate tributaries. No, maybe not. Gosh, it's hard to tell how the river goes with this backdrop on there. Anyway, that looks like it's in danger. All right, are you ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, it's almost 4 a.m. in the morning here, but so I will get some sleep soon. But I appreciate you having me on. We should do this again.
Absolutely. Maybe we can do it at a little more reasonable hour for both of us.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much for joining me. Tell people real quick about your channel and what you have coming up.
So my channel's Nights with Ping. We've actually been doing the Aaron Patterson trial live from the courtroom in Melbourne, Australia for the last 2.5 months. We're currently in verdict watch right now. So the jury is deliberating at this point in time. So we're waiting on a verdict for that one.
And how long have they been deliberating?
So today's a day off, but they were deliberating yesterday, Saturday, and that would have been day 6. So no deliberating on Sunday for this jury. They'll be back on Monday. That'll be day 7.
Okay, I dropped a link to your channel in there. Everybody give Ping a follow, and we'll be looking for that verdict. That's the lady that poisoned her family with mushrooms. Is that what that is?
Right. Poison mushrooms. Yep.
Oh gosh. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you everybody in chat. Thank you 857 Tucson, and thank you Forrest. I appreciate that. Thank you for gifting the memberships. Thanks everybody for your comments. And thank you to my mods. Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody. Be safe out there. Send your prayers to the people that are affected in Texas, and that we find those little girls. Thanks, Ping. Take care. Take care, everybody.
Yep. Good night.
See you soon, my love. afternoon. Don't forget to stop back by and see me real soon. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference if we try. Thank you for stopping in. Thanks for saying hi. Together we can make a difference.